Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Rams Brothers, the pod. I'm your host, Dean, and I'm joined by the other host of this show, Nick. And Nick, bye week, Thanksgiving, time to reset. How are you feeling?
Good. I feel reset. I feel welcomed. I feel happy. It's a good time of the year right now. It's very football season, football weather. Um, just feeling good. Feeling good. Had a lot of Golden Road Brewery beers yesterday. Our official beer partner.
Nice little
Um,
plug.
yeah. Oh, Whose House? Rams House Blondale. It's a very good beer.
Yeah, we
Um,
also placed a few bets via MyBookie. More is always better with MyBookie, obviously. That's why MyBookie is instantly doubling all of your first-time deposits. Nick and I were binging a little bit on MyBookie a little bit too much yesterday. We had some money on the Lions, which is always a mistake. But again, you got to get into it a little bit. LAFB is your promo code. You could double your deposit bonus. All you have to do is plug in LAFB by doubling your deposit bonus to receive double your deposit instantly upon your first entry. Promo code LAFB. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Let's get into the Packers. And this is a Packers team that there's tons of familiarity within this game, right? It's Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay, essentially best friends in this game, right? The two guys going head to head, similar to Shanahan and McVay. Highly anticipated game of the week at Lambeau Field. It's a rematch of the divisional round of the playoffs. Rams opened up 1.5 point underdogs and are now favored by 1 full point. And again, it's the first time the former defensive player of the year and Aaron Donald has gone against the former MVP of the league in Aaron Rodgers since 2011. So Nick, I know last week, if you asked us around this time, probably say we were fairly pessimistic about this game, but do you feel a little bit better going into it now? Fast forwarding, it's Friday. We're getting ready for the game on Sunday. Tell us a little bit how you're feeling versus last week.
I'll tell you what makes me feel better. The fact that the line is moving in favor of the Rams, which means a lot of money is coming in on the Packers. So they're trying to make it more incentive to bet on them, Vegas. So that makes me just feel good in general because usually Vegas always wins, right? As terms of this team going against a really tough Packers team after the Packers just lost in Lambeau, with Matthew Stafford's record against Aaron Rodgers, 4-12. No, I'm probably about just as much confidence I would if you would have asked me this time last week. But they could shock me. Here's what I said to you, and I said it before on this podcast. If the Rams get the ball first and they don't score on the opening drive, I think the game is over. And I think that will be the case if they don't get if the defense doesn't get to start on the field for them.
Okay. So you're telling me you don't have any faith in Sean McVay to play from behind, and you don't have any faith in Raheem Morris's defense.
I have no faith in Sean McVay to play from behind. I have faith or Matthew Stafford. I have faith in Morris's defense for sure, especially with Von Miller in full swing now. And I think they're probably going to put Ramsey in some more interesting packages.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I have faith in the defense. It's the offense that scares the crap out of me. I mean, with all this talent, they should just be operating way more. But we'll see,
Well, no, it's going to be a good segue to kind of the back half of this podcast, right? We're going to talk about why I don't think the defense is necessarily an issue and why the offense has been putting them in odd positions. So I think all the Raheem Morris talk is a little bit unjustified, or maybe it's just absolutely flat out insane. The fact that
I think when you look at the Rams fan base, I think so many of them are delusional that they cannot blame Sean McVay. And they can't blame Matthew Stafford for anything, which just it couldn't be further from the case. McVay can't call a game from behind, and Stafford's holding on to the ball too long and 2 weeks in a row, giving the opposing team 6 points. Mm-hmm. So I think criticism there is absolutely just. But yeah, fans are crazy. Fans are going to be telling you to fire Andy Reid. They were saying that Andy's getting too old on the Chiefs, and now they're back in full swing, and they're like, oh, well, maybe not. So.
Yeah, second favorites to win the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think it's going to be interesting, right? Joe Barry for the Packers, he's done a really nice job as the defensive coordinator there. He's coming back, right? So it's going to be another kind of face-to-face with a former assistant, right? He was an assistant to the head coach. He was the linebackers coach for 4 years, so there's a ton of familiarity there as well. And Aubrey Pleasant, obviously, we talked about what the defensive backs have been doing this year versus what Brandon Staley did with them last year, and Aubrey Pleasant was able to do with them. You could argue that either Aubrey Pleasant or Joe Barry could have been a better hire internally versus Raheem Morris, but that's neither here nor there right now. You have to kind of deal with what Raheem Morris is putting out there. But again, I think you mentioned Jalen Ramsey is going to be in a little bit different of a package. I don't think you're going to see him dedicated necessarily to the star. I don't think you're going to see him blitzing. It's just not a position where you need him to be, right? Even if it's where he wants to be, I don't think that's necessarily going to be what you see in this game. So again, it's going to be all, you talked about not being able to blame Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, but the 2 early interceptions, you can't throw another pick 6 in this game. It's another primetime game. It's a must win. And you have to be able to take great care of the football early on. And you can't be able to force anything. You don't have to force anything deep. Just be able to get the job done. And I think that the offense, given it's had a couple of weeks to humble itself, defenses have certainly humbled Sean McVay. They will have opportunities to adjust in this game. We'll get a little bit into the X's and O's later on. But yeah, I know you don't feel great about what we're up against, what the task is at hand with the Packers. But I think the familiarity, the way that they kind of match up with the line of scrimmage, I think there's a little bit of an advantage there in favor of the Rams. They've been banged up in terms of injuries that we'll talk about in a couple seconds. So that's what I think is going to mold the identity of this game, is the fact that the Packers are so banged up and the Rams have matchups that they could potentially exploit, which is why the line is starting to shift now. So is there any reason, Nick, that you feel like with the way that the Packers are banged up, are injured, that the Rams shouldn't have an advantage in this game?
I mean, I think they do have the advantage on defense, which is why I also think that I'm ready to see Morris's defense in full effect. But before we talk about all the injuries, and there are a lot, there's 2 things I think this Rams team has become: soft, clearly, and they have a target on their back. They have no identity. They can only beat you in a flashy way. They lose to banged up teams, which will be continued. Last week, we couldn't stop talking about, or 2 weeks ago, how banged up the 49ers were. And they still go out there and they lose that game. And they have no identity as a running team when they run the ball 9 times. And then, I just think they're, you wouldn't think they would have a target on their back, but you got those McVay Thanos memes. Receivers want to shut up the loudmouth star Jalen Ramsey, and I'm all for that aggression and that Draymond Green energy on the team. You love that when it's on your side. Marcus Peters was a big, was one of those guys too that we loved. But that's fuel for the other team. So I'm just really worried that this Packers team is going to show up and kind of show us who we are, and I think it's a flashy, soft team.
Right.
And the Packers have this next man up mentality now too, which is another thing that teams love to lean their heads on. So there are a lot of injuries, and I just think before we get into all of them, we got to take a step back and think about what this Rams team really is. If they think that they can even they're going to hopefully they see the Packers in full force in the playoffs, right?
Yep.
They did last year. And you got to hope that they can at least beat them now. So if they see them again, it's, at least they can be like, well, we were able to beat them once. Now they got all these guys back. Now we definitely won't beat them.
Yeah, injuries can't be the main storyline, right? It has to be more about out-scheming the opponent, right? Because they're still football players. The next man up mentality is very real, and Joe Barry's done an incredible job as defensive coordinator over there, being able to rally that group. So I think that some things schematically, we talked about with the 49ers, how I know we talked about the injuries, how in-depth it was with them, but they're able to, scheme a really, really solid run game, which just makes the defense become physical, forces them to tackle. And then the other component of it is when you're able to kind of put together a scheme that gives you an advantage. For example, if you could come out of 11 personnel, if you can come out with more of a run-based identity, it's not just all about forcing the run game, right? You don't have to establish the run early on, but if you can establish some form of an identity that makes you unpredictable versus what Sean McVay is doing right now, where the empties, the 11 personnel groupings, the outside zone scheme is all becoming very predictable and all very much based around the identity of Sean McVay. So if he could do little things, if he can figure out a way to motion some receivers to get the matchups, to take their best defenders out of plays, similar to what San Francisco did to us. It's not going to be about the injuries, right? But I think that there's an opportunity to kind of out-scheme the opponent here. And then because of the injuries, you could win and get some of the matchups that you have to get in this game. But the starting with the injuries with the Packers, David Bakhtiari, he's going to be out in this game. He hasn't practiced all week. He's going to be out for a significant portion of time, potentially into January. Kevin King is dealing with a hip and knee injury. He hasn't practiced all week. Aaron Rodgers obviously isn't practicing. He didn't practice all last week. He did the exact same thing. It's not going to be an issue for him. But again, he's dealing with a lingering broken toe, not to be confused with COVID toe. No Mercedes Lewis, no Malik Taylor at practice. They did not practice on Thursday. We'll monitor their status for today rather. But then the rest, Aaron Jones, Rashawn Gary, Alan Lazard, they all practiced in a limited capacity. So they're all expected to go barring any setbacks on Sunday. But opportunities where if, for example, Aaron Jones goes out, you can kind of shift your game plan because a player like A.J. Dillon is not going to be able to get out in space, right? So they're going to want to ground and pound and be physical if they're just playing with that one back. So there's going to be some injuries with the Packers right now that we're trying to monitor. But the defense, again, they've been out with pass rushers, Zadarius Smith, Pro Bowl cornerback Jair Alexander. Those are two players, Nick. It's almost like us not having Leonard Floyd and Jalen Ramsey for an extended period of time. So you talked about next man up mentality. This is the definition of it. Defensive lineman Kingsley Keek, edge rushers Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Whitney Marcellus, linebackers Chris Barnes, and quarterbacks Kevin King and Eric Stokes have all missed time.
I remember sitting here when we were going through the injured list on the Niners. and I'm just like, and this is something that you never want to do. You never want to bet on the team because of the other people that are out on the other team. This is making me think, the Rams can win. It's like the Rams haven't done anything to make me feel better about them winning this game. It's the injury report from the other team. And that's just it's just like I wish
Tennessee and San Francisco. We did the same thing with Derrick Henry. We did the same thing the following week with San Francisco.
Exactly. And I wish the Rams were doing things that got me excited that they could win and not the other team's injury report. And 2 weeks now, they haven't been doing anything that has shown anything close to me feeling confident in them.
I don't blame you. I mean, we could talk about how they're going to go up against a starting offensive line. Yosh Nijman, who's going to be their starting left tackle, probably butchered that name, Yosh. John Runyon Jr., Lucas Patrick, Royce Newman, Billy Turner. We'll go with Yoshi for the sake of the podcast. But, I mean, you could talk about how depleted this offensive line is. If the Packers have any kind of identity that's similar to the Kyle Shanahan scheme, which we know that they do, it's been that tree, which they branched off of, that it's going to be next man up mentality. And that offensive line isn't as bad as we're scouting it out to be. So that's just what we've seen in this league, right? With teams that are deep, teams that make deep playoff runs, players like Bakhtiari being out. They still have Billy Turner, who's played some good minutes. He's going to log some more solid reps at right tackle. But their starting offensive line should have been Bakhtiari, Jenkins, who that injury to Jenkins has been awful, right? The fact that he's been able to play three positions and now he's going to be out for the year. Myers, their center, is going to be out. Billy Turner, I mentioned, is now going to play right tackle. And Kelly, who's another massive piece, 6'8", 321-pound right tackle, is going to be out. But again, to Nick, to you, this all just doesn't friggin' matter whatsoever.
Is there any words on Jones?
On Aaron Jones? I watched him clip on Twitter fly down the field, catch a pass. Too. So I assume that Aaron Jones is going to be playing in this game.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm a team and I'm scheming to play the Rams, I do exactly what San Francisco does. Why? How do you get Aaron Donald out of the game? You get your quarterback to throw the ball before Aaron Donald can even make an impact, right? You don't a good way to play against the Rams is just play opposite of them. Stay on the ground, run the ball really well, get the ball out of your quarterback's hands fast. It's that bend, don't break defense that Morris loves to run, where it's hey, get in the red zone and then figure it out in the red zone. And if you just have good red zone efficiency, which we all know Aaron Rodgers has the best, it'll be a long drive. It'll get you down there, get you in the red zone, and then flip to the Rams, who want to get it done in time of possession, 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And it's if they get 1 third down where they're stopped, it's over. And that's why there isn't a good turnaround. They need to play on top so that they can just keep, get scoring fast. But, it's just their offense and the defense don't really work well together. I feel like you could have a methodical defense if you have a methodical offense as well that takes off a lot of time. And yeah, I just think I think Rodgers knows that, and I think he doesn't have to sit back there and make these giant, huge throws like he did against the Vikings. He just kind of has to go in there and kind of punch a clock to beat this team. So we'll see.
Yeah, the thing with Aaron Rodgers, right? If he's going to come out, they're going to have to be able to move the pocket with him. But the one thing that I admire just so much about the 49ers, and I actually can't believe that I admire this that much about them, because it's really not all that complicated. Like you said, you run opposite, you flip the play. What they did really well, you line up your two best players. For example, you can line up Deebo Samuel in the slot, which Jalen Ramsey, as he's in the star, is going to pick up on Deebo Samuel. Then once you motion him into the backfield and line him up and run him to the opposite side, you've now taken Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey out of the same play. So it's an incredible opportunity for Sean McVay to just study the tape and to just sit there and say, look, the 49ers ran this out of 11 personnel, where they had a bunch formation on the left-hand side. They motioned Deebo into the backfield and ran a toss sweep to the right-hand side of the field, picked up 7 yards, and it was as efficient as it could be because it forced Troy Reeder and Darius Williams and David Long Jr. and Robert Rochelle to make tackles in the second level. And it's not that complicated. You could very much do the same thing. You just watched the Vikings do with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen what the Rams could very well do with Odell Beckham Jr. playing the role of Justin Jefferson, and then Adam Thielen and Cooper Kupp. Right? You could run long developing routes, right? Plays that take a while to develop down the field with receivers that have option routes on the inside, or you call them in motion and give them something underneath, or you go to your third receiver in your progression, which is a tight end that's dragging, right? So there's a lot of things schematically that I think the Rams are going to be able to do in this game that they've just learned from over the past 2 weeks, which they should have known in the past. And it's on them. And it's the reason why we're so frustrated with the identity of this team, is because this very simplified ground and pound style is what's out physicaling and out manning the Rams. And it's not a team up front that's supposed to be out physicaled. But again, if we flip the side of the ball, we'll talk about Dante Dion, Leonard Floyd. They're both talked about in practice, limited capacity. We think they're both going to be able to go. So Dante Dion, he was a late scratch against San Francisco. So him being able to contribute with the defensive backs, I think, is going to be really important. But the defensive side of the ball, they have a solid opportunity. And again, I have some numbers that we'll dive into in a second. But Matthew Stafford, Nick, let's talk about Stafford for a second, because you talked about his record, 0-16 when facing teams with a record 5 games over 500 at this point of the season. So his last 2 games, 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, sacked 7 times, quarterback rating under 70. We've only allowed 15 sacks on the whole year. 7 of them came in the last 2 weeks. So the Packers could take advantage. They picked up 26 sacks total, and they're 11th in total quarterback hits. So these last 2 games, we spotted them 14 points each. We spotted Tennessee 14 points and San Francisco 14 points. If you can control the ball, control the clock, and not turn the ball over early on in this game with Matthew Stafford, you're going to be in a really good position to win the game. But the reverse has happened to the Rams as of recent.
I just feel like we're having the same conversation that we had last year and the year before. And it's just, we're just using a different name for the quarterback. And it's just, it's just sad. Matthew Stafford, Kyle Bryant called this out, or Kyle Brandt. Matthew Stafford is going to break the record for most starts without a playoff win in week 17 against Baltimore. Do you want to guess how many that'll be, most starts without a playoff win? I know
180 something.
180 is the number that he will pass. He'll be at 181. And yeah, I mean, it's just hard to get behind somebody who just has that, lion's cloud hovering over them. And I'm sure he wants to get out of that too. It's hard, it's like when you're a TV star and you got to make your way into film. Everybody knows you as Ross Geller, David Schwimmer. You're not going to be this giant marketable film star. I'm sorry. This is Matthew Stafford's game to have. And it should be treated exactly like a playoff game. And you prepare for it like a playoff game. And all the Rams have been saying, this is a playoff game. You have to go toe-to-toe with Rodgers. And if he dominates, he'll be in the MVP conversation.
Both of them. I think if either dominate, they're back in the MVP conversation.
Yep.
If he flops and throws another pick six, then everybody besides me looks like a fool. You have written, we're all fools, but I have been on top of this the whole time. And I could not be more terrified going into this game. I would love to be proven wrong. I just think Matthew Stafford is exactly who he is. He is David Schwimmer. And, I don't care what marketable star you put him next to, Gwyneth Paltrow, whoever, he's still going to be Ross Geller.
Gwyneth Paltrow, for whatever reason, I have like a direct correlation with Shallow Hal. That's like the only role that I have her in my head as, which is awful. But I think Matthew Stafford can help the defense in this game. It's not just about Matthew Stafford helping the offense. He can do little things to help mitigate those mistakes. But the Rams' defense's stats, you talked about Raheem Morris, and this is a reason why I don't think Raheem Morris needs to be fired. And I think this goes hand in hand with what Matthew Stafford is going through, because the offense is giving away points, right? The pressure has to increase, but the Rams are blitzing at a high percentage, and they're leading in sacks. They're within the top 3 or 5. The defense needs to be able to start generating some more pressure from their front four instead of sitting back in coverage when they're defending against the pass, right? So one of the reasons why I feel like the Rams' defense was so effective at times last year, or while Goff was there, I should say, was because the Rams' offense were taking more time off the clock over the years where Goff was there, more methodical drives, where you're able to just allow your defense to rest a little bit more. The Rams' defense has been on the field for 658 total plays in 10 games, while the Bills' defense has been on the field for 661 plays in 11 games. So anything that you take into account here, you just have to kind of focus on things like average field position in which the opponent is starting drives, as well as average time of possession by offense, which are things that the Rams aren't doing too well. And it's because Matthew Stafford's making mistakes. So if you could take one of those mistakes away per game, the defensive statistics, are better because they're more well-rested. And they haven't been on the field they've been on the field for longer because these turnovers are happening. And they're 23rd in the league right now in terms of total time of possession at 28.46. So that's their total time of possession on average per game right now. It's 3 full minutes less than their numbers last year. So their early poorly timed turnovers mixed with their aggression in the passing game plays into that. And looking deeper, they're only getting 62 plays off per game, which is 19th most this season, opposed to 67 in 2020. So ball control is extremely important over the next 7 games. I feel like Chip Kelly counting plays, but it's important to own time of possession, to not turn the ball over. These are really simple things that we feel like we could fix. I know one of the things within the San Francisco preview we talked about, San Francisco felt like they had little things that they could fix, right? Penalties, poorly timed turnovers. If those things don't happen, the Rams, I think, were the most highly penalized team against Tennessee. You come out again, you only let up maybe 4 or 5 penalties, and you're able to not turn the ball over, maybe force one early on, which they haven't been able to do. It's a completely different game, completely different. So that's kind of where I'm optimistic. I feel like it's little things that they could just spend more time. You could put together a more methodical, time-consuming drive where you're controlling time of possession, you're establishing the run, you're creating something that looks like, standard 11 personnel, the same stuff that they've been running, and then you run a toss sweep to the opposite side. Get your guys in space, get your playmakers in space, and find the matchups that you have to find. And I think they're going to be in a good spot. I really do. I think that this game is their game to win. I know you feel the opposite, but little things like that, I think when you kind of dig into it, time of possession. I mean, it's just you hold on to the ball for 3 more minutes per game, and the odds of you winning that game probably favor you by X amount. So
yeah, just here's what I feel. The Rams have not made any adjustments at all season. They have the same identity. Beat you over the top, going to get it to you deep. Cooper Kupp is our guy. Get him in the middle of the field. No run game. We don't need it. And yeah, I just I don't know why they would start changing things up now. I mean, maybe post bye, maybe McVay can kind of actually eat some humble pie. Maybe he had some apple pie, pumpkin pie, some humble pie over Thanksgiving. I just don't think he did. I think we're going to get the same exact Rams that we've seen. And I don't, people can be yelling at me all they want on Twitter. I don't really care. It's kind of just it just seems like the team that's the kind of team that we are. Feels a lot
I get
like
that.
Lakers,
I get that. And then you compound that with the fact that they don't have the strength to deal with the stretches, the zones, the toss sweeps. They don't have the ability to be more physical at the line of scrimmage. If there's an offensive line that's battered and bruised, they could still out scheme them. So yeah, I feel your pain.
I just don't. Yeah, and McVay has proven that he's not a good coach at adjusting. I mean, the stat when he's leading at halftime is obviously amazing. He doesn't have to adjust anything. Whatever he's doing is working. The stat when he's losing at halftime is a lot uglier.
Yep.
He's just. It's just like I don't know. I feel like him and Stafford are kind of one and the same. Where it's like, if you get them on a good day, they're just going to be rolling. But if you get them when they start off ugly, then you just can kind of roll over them. It feels like they're both that kind of guy.
You're right. I think they just need to be a little bit smarter. I think you're dead on. I think they need to be a little bit smarter. I think things like light boxes and nickel packages, right? You have to understand that you're not going to be able to defend against the run in that scenario. Where if you have Troy Reader and 5 guys rushing the passer, even if you're playing gap and a half, somebody's going to be able to break through.
Like show me 1 or 2 or 7 packages where you have 2 tight ends on the field.
They don't feel like they have the personnel. I mean, the 49ers, Nick, to start that game, 11 personnel to start. Then the Rams were in nickel to defend against that, 11 personnel, which is 5 defensive backs while they were rushing 5. One linebacker on the field was Troy Reader, which I will always disagree with. But one of those 5 defensive backs were in the slot. It was Jalen Ramsey opposite of play side. And then Donald lines up in 3T, which is offset of the left guard opposite of play side. So like I mentioned, what do the 49ers do? They motion the slot, leaving Jalen Ramsey with a last-second assignment change, and then you run opposite Aaron Donald.
And that's exactly what Ramsey got burnt in the playoff game against Green Bay last year. I remember last second he's got to
instead of you can't, and then that's the thing. You can't motion when you motion Debo to a running back, you can't motion Ramsey to a middle linebacker, right? Yeah. Because Troy Reader is already kind of filling that zone. So he just kind of has to stay in place and then signal to whoever's behind him, like, hey, this is my assignment change. I'm probably going to rush the passer now to try and get into the backfield and stop the run. And it's very easy to just run right past them. So it's a bad use, not to mention he's the best defensive back in terms of a tackler too. So if the running back happens to get into the second level, he kind of has to be there because Jordan Fuller.
I love Ramsey going in for the blitz, like to change it up, but I don't want to see that package like more than twice a game.
No, I don't even need to see it more than once a game.
Yeah. Like it's good as like it's almost like a trick play because like you never would expect it. Now you got this like Gangly Waliji guy, it's, coming at you like full spread, and it's hard to stop. But I don't even think I've seen it work this year. Maybe once, like in week 2, but.
I want to see them, like the Rams are so good at pre-snap stuff. You could identify, you could dissect things pre-snap, obviously post-snap too. But I want to see them be able to kind of figure out how they can motion to double team, to kick out an end, kick out a defensive end, create a running lane, and then be able to cut stuff up inside of the field with the run. Sony Michel's great at that. Darrell Henderson is a good one-cut running back. They may not be great after contact right now, but when people are pounding the table to establish the run, there's a lot more complexity to it, right? I think that's fair to say. The fact that the early turnovers, you turn them. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say there's a lot of complexity to it, right? Yeah. There's a lot. You got first year coach ever, Nick Sirianni. People out here telling him, run the ball. Like, please, like, he ran the ball like 5 times a game, like first couple games. And then, second half of the season, Eagles have suddenly identified themselves as a powerhouse running team with Sanders. And I'm not here to say it is that simple, but when you have a sample size of like another team that doesn't really have like, quote unquote, like, workhorse running backs out here kind of just establishing the run way more, you're going to have more breakout runs and you're going to be able to like call a completely different game. And that's something that has been missing from this team. And you have to trust the guy that you have. You need to put a little more work on Henderson's shoulders. And I just want to see that a lot more. And I think that takes take some stress off of Stafford's life and everybody around him. So, and if it means getting another running back in that room, do it. Like run 3. You know what I mean? Like, no one's stopping you from picking somebody else up. Like, Sonny Michel really hasn't done anything for us. So.
Well, that's true. Going back to the Eagles, it's been Jordan Howard, Boston Scott, and now Miles Sanders is back in the mix. And they figured out a way to make it work with all 3 of those guys. Plus, you have a moving
Scott's
quarterback.
Like half our size.
I know. Well, the thing with Darrell Henderson, you kind of have to ride him as deep as you can right now. And as much as I would like for them to bring in another running back, it's been Henderson and Sonny Michel who have, I think it was compiled anywhere from like 21 to 22 plays that have amassed 0 or negative yards total. So it's not like when he calls the run play, he expects his running back to get at least back to the line of scrimmage or at least get him 3 or 4 yards. But it's not always the fact that, that you're calling a run play. Maybe the play isn't well executed. Maybe it's not a play that your upfront blockers prefer. Maybe there was a misexecution, maybe a penalty, whatever it was. You could figure out a way. I think the running backs coach is Thomas Henderson or Thomas Brown. You could figure out a way or the run game coordinator. You could scheme up a better run game so that your guys aren't getting hit in the backfield, right? If you could scheme up motion, toss, sweep, you're disguising your 11 personnel. You're running. You could run a different scheme out of 11 personnel. Like there's so many different things that you could do, which, you blame the fact that it's, Henderson has injuries or Sonny Michel, they can't break tackles in the second level. Well, maybe your run game coordinator should be scheming up a better run game because you're coming off of a coaching tree who knows how to do it very well. And you should be surrounding yourself with players people in your personnel who are doing things that you're not able to do well.
What about a little like Henderson option, like Stafford kind of draws off left, draws some guys, pitches it back to him, and then he gets a little, something. Just like a little bit of creativity, which has kind of been lost on this team.
Yeah, I'm not too old to remember the Wildcat. Cam Akers ran it perfectly against the Green Bay in the divisional round.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against any of that stuff. I think any way you can get those kind of ball carriers in space into the second level and you keep going, one of the things the running backs need, and some of the best running backs will tell you, they need carries to get going. You need 10 carries. You need to get hit in the face. You need to get the snot knocked out of you in order to get going. The thing with Darrell Henderson, I think he saw the same thing with Todd Gurley too, especially later towards the Super Bowl run, where if you get hit maybe 8, 9, 10 times, the inverse effect is happening, where they're like, oh God, I'm banged up. My ankle's hurting. My knee's hurting again. And then you have to ride somebody like Sonny Michel when theoretically that running back should start to get going at that time.
Yeah, you need momentum. I mean, you got to get hit and you got to get back up. It's just part of the game. And Staley talks a lot about that. He still talks about it in LA, except not on the Rams, the Chargers. And yeah, I think that's a really true thing about the sport. And you need that kind of aggression. You need that kind of mentality to be a strong team. And we just don't have that at all. Maybe Cam Akers comes back and brings that for us, but when would that be? You know what I mean? The season's a little longer. Maybe he comes in week 17, surprises some people, and he's ready to go. But we'll see.
Yeah, no, there's a lot that remains to be seen. I think one of the other things we're going to look at, right, Rasul Douglas has had a decent year. Eric Stokes, Darnell Savage, he can kind of do it all. They're kind of good at limiting your passing game. So I want to see what they're able to do, what they're able to dissect with Matthew Stafford. You have to come out with a really good game plan on the ground in this game, like we talked about. You have to be able to scheme up a good run game in this game. The Packers have only allowed 6.6 pass yards per attempt. So, I mean, even with the absence of Jair Alexander and some of the other injuries they've had to their depth, they're still very good at defending the pass. So, I mean, again, you got somebody like Joe Barry who's in the mix, 7.67 yards per attempt. For Aaron Rodgers, his EPA per play is 4th best. So you're going to have to be able to figure out a way to limit him as well. But the Packers, one thing that I feel like the Rams can do, if they could win at the line of scrimmage, if you still want to rush 5 and have Troy Reeder there, right, and then you could still run nickel, to be able to defend the pass, you may be able to win, some of those plays at the line of scrimmage with the banged up offensive line. If you can hopefully prevent the Packers 30th%, I think, what are they, 30th overall in explosive run play percentage. So they haven't been able to really get the run game going. They've shown it a couple times, but if Aaron Jones can't go, you can keep them at the line of scrimmage. They're not going to be able to blow away from you. So I'm excited to see what happens there. Only having one linebacker on the field concerns me, but players like Rapp, Reeder, Long Jr., et cetera, in coverage, Dante Dion coming back. I think Rodgers is eventually going to figure out who's inferior amongst that group, but it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be a hell of a game. And I think there's some matchups within this game that the Rams do have. So what do you think, Nick? You ready for next pick?
I think this is a game that everybody besides Matthew Stafford has to play up, because I think there's going to be a big monkey on his back trying to beat this team. So I think the only way to really do it is if you have a really good defensive game, you have a really good run game, because I just don't trust him to beat this Green Bay team on his own. Not with
he
all
doesn't have to. Yeah,
he
doesn't have to.
I don't think he does either, and I don't think he should. I don't think and I don't want that to be the scheme. I don't want that to be what McVay is putting out there.
Sure, and it very well could be. You feel like he could come out and say, "Hey, Matthew, I don't want you to make any mistakes. Shot called does definitely not mean shot taken."
Yeah.
So I don't know what the hell he's going to put in his head. But that's another thing. You shrink a playmaker's ability, somebody who can really launch the ball down the field. You tell him to take everything underneath. Eventually, he's going to want to break that down. But you have to be patient in this league. Eventually, when they're not in a too high shell and they're only showing one safety, then you take your shot. You just might have to wait until the third quarter to do it. So.
Yeah, and that's totally okay. You don't have to mash on the Hail Mary early.
Exactly. I'm ready for the picks if you are.
You want to go into Nick's picks?
I'm ready for it.
All right. Welcome, everybody, my fellow WarioWare gamblers, you greedy, disgusting thieves. All lines are provided by MyBookie. We took a week off last week. Never a bad thing to step back and watch a week of football with no money on the line. It's a nice feeling. Last couple weeks, we've been winning 3-2, winning 1 or winning 3, losing 2. Barely skating on by with our 1 unit win, but hopefully this week we can get our first perfect week of the season. Before we get started, Dean, if you would like to, give us your lock of the week, which hasn't necessarily been a lock, but we'll see.
I've been pretty good. I don't remember any lines that haven't been, even the last 4 weeks. I've been spot on. I'm going to go Rams to cover, Rams to win, Rams outright.
Rams -1.
No, I'm going the trifecta: to cover, to win.
Well, yeah, -1.
So it's not a trifecta. Yeah, -1.
I mean, yeah, because there's not a big cover. Anyway, all right. Let's just get started. Let's start off Jets at Texans, the Titans Bowl. Both of these teams beat the Titans, and the Rams couldn't. Let's just start by saying this. If you bet on this game, you have a gambling problem. Okay, so here we go. I'm taking the Texans. Stephen A. Smith. Why? Because I have a rule of thumb. Never bet on the Jets. It's my thumb right here. And it's always okay to bet against them. What did the Texans do good? Short answer is not much. They're 2-8. Both of these teams are horrible. So what it comes down to me for is essentially you got home field advantage with the Texans, and you got a little momentum. Texans coming off a win last week, and the Jets have none whatsoever. They're starting Joe Flacco. I mean, come on now. Let's drop this stat for you right here, okay? Texans are 7 for 12 on 4th down conversions. You got to think this is a game where they're going to be going for it on 4th down. It's a team they can beat, and they can becoming a frisky playoff busting team, this Texans team. Oh, and by the way, they're 10 for 10 on 5th down conversions. I like the Texans to win outright, 32-10, stomp on the Jets.
What the hell's a 5th down conversion?
Just a little joke. I wanted to see if you were listening.
Oh, I'm following word for word.
Then we got the Eagles at the Giants. Is it time to jump on the Eagles train? If they win against the Giants, then they're a win away from winning their division, and they get to play Dallas again with a legitimate shot to beat them and take the division title from the Cowboys. But before they do that, they have to go take down the Giants in a gross, muggy MetLife Stadium game. And I think the Eagles are going to be looking past this game, and I think it will show. But I think they're going to be able to eke out a win at the end of the day. But the line is Giants +3.5, which will change to +4, +4.5, because already all the public money is coming in on the Birds. Like we say all the time here at Nick's Picks, we hate public money. And not to mention the Giants shine when no one thinks they're going to win at home, like they did against the Raiders. It's also the Strahan game. Strahan will be accepting a reward at halftime. So you got to think the Giants have something to play for. I mean, hopefully he's not, out there getting booed, Strahan at halftime. I'm placing Giants +3.5, and then after you do that, you run away from the podium because it doesn't feel good but I think it'll be the outcome that will come at the end of it.
So whenever teams, I feel like induct somebody to a Hall of Fame or do some kind of like enshrinement or something, they lose.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm hammering the Eagles.
Yeah, Isaac Bruce, Titans game.
Then the Giants just honor the Super Giants team like 4 weeks ago. They just honored Eli and Plaxico.
Yeah, and they lost.
Yeah, and now they're just honoring Strahan alone.
Yeah, I don't know what it is specifically. Whatever. Let's get back in. We're also going to take the under in this divisional game. This is the crazy stats. It's 2005. The under hits 65% of the time after week 10 in divisional games.
Wow. A good stat. Good ball.
It hit on Thanksgiving with the Bears and the Lions because, of course, it did. Also, I just want to let everybody know this. DraftKings at halftime had a live boosted line of plus 450 if Goff threw a touchdown pass in the third quarter. I actually got a little notification on my phone. I was like, oh, this is really good. Like a direct advertising. I couldn't have taken that bet faster if I wanted to, and if it would allowed me to put more than $100 down, I would have. But that was a nice little Thanksgiving feast for me. Let's get back on track. In vain of these divisional games, mostly going under after week 10, we're also taking under 45 in Bengals Steelers as well.
Okay.
I
like your justification to that.
I don't think you have to do more research. I don't think the Steelers are really just like a team that puts up a lot of points in general. Maybe the Bengals are, but this is going to be a dogfight, loser out of town kind of game. So Bengals have a chance to really prove themselves. Steelers also kind of do too. I still think they're both frisky. I think it's going to be really close, but I like the under. And my quick pick. Wow, we're already here. It feels like we just got started. Well, I think you know where this is going, Dean. We got a Vikings money line parlay with Rams money line. A Vikings best friends parlay. Vikings beat the Niners and the Rams take down the Packers. Not too bad for the Rams either. Niners lose and the Rams win. Let's be friends, Vikings fans. I think we both deserve this.
Yeah.
So let's run it back. We got Texas money line, Giants plus 3.5, which is the one that we don't feel perfect about. You run away from the podium, but I still think it hits. I think the Eagles win on a field goal. Under 44.5 Eagles Giants, under 45 and Steelers Bengals game, and a Rams Vikings parlay to just feast on the day, which comes out to really nice odds.
I like it up until the Vikings. I think the Vikings are due. They just came off an emotional win, and the 49ers are so tough. You got to play those two teams back to back. 49ers are
there's
hot.
No stigma that like the 49ers out, you take out the Rams game and they're like not a good team.
500 team.
They're not even.
5-5.
Are they 5-5 right now? I thought they were 4.
5-5 because of us. Yeah, well, I like the Rams. I like the Rams in this game, not because we're Rams fans. I think the matchup plays in their favor. Obviously, injuries you take into account. Rodgers' toe, the fact that they have to move the pocket with him consistently. If they, by accident, step on his toe or they have to keep him in the pocket, it's going to be a completely different game plan that they have to adjust from. So I like it.
If you go to the doctors with a toe injury, they send you home.
Yeah, they send you home. Exactly.
Because it's not that important. So I don't care about that.
No, and you don't feel it after a while. But once you get moving, somebody steps on it accidentally, it might hurt a little bit more. But no, I think they have the ability now and the sample size of games that they've lost to interject some of that into their scheme to win this game. So I have plenty of faith. They're much healthier. They're coming off of a bye. McVay's good off of a bye. There's redemption that needs to be had from the divisional round. There's the Aaron Donald saga where he had broken ribs and rib cartilage that was hanging loose from his ribs in that game that he miraculously came back from and played, or Russell Wilson sat on his stomach and broke his ribs. So I think there's all these different things that are coming into play. I think that give them the advantage, but I don't know. You never know. It's football week to week. I felt like there was going to be the time that they were going to break down the door against San Francisco. They did the total opposite. But again, it's another humbling loss where they can take a lot from it and figure out a way to make their offense better. So
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
I didn't do score predictions this week because I've never gotten a single one right. But I'll drop a Rams score prediction right here.
Sure.
I think it's 27-23. Rams walk away victorious.
I'm going 34-28 Rams.
I think they start off hot, and I think they kind of crumble a little bit. And I think they win this game, and I think it's not a Stafford heavy game, but I think they pull it out.
Sony Michel 2 touchdowns is my hot take.
Oh, that'd be a nice bet.
Stafford, I think Stafford's over 2.5 touchdowns is, well, I think it's like a heavy underdog for him to throw more than 2.5 touchdowns.
Yeah, you think he's going to get 3 touchdowns?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So if they're going to score, I think it's going to eventually be on the ground. And then you lose, you want to use Sony Michel in the red zone because you're a little bit more sure-handed with him. Well, I don't know. Henderson's played well in the red zone as well. So make it a nice little dosage of both. I'd like to see Henderson as a pass catcher in this game.
Yeah, wouldn't hate it.
No. All right, cool. Well, looks like we're ready to go for Sunday.
Yeah, let's go. Horns
All
up,
right,
baby.
cool. Guys, as always, like, subscribe, leave us a review, hit that little like button, give us a thumbs up. The words I've always dreaded as a YouTuber, but please, we appreciate your support. We live and die off of your support. Just kidding. But we appreciate you guys in all forms. The game on Sunday is going to be a playoff game, so put on your Rams gear, get ready to go. It's going to be a hell of a good time.
Yeah. It'll be fun to watch together.
Yeah, for sure. Horns up.
Horns up, baby.
Let's
Go
get a
Rams.
win. Need a win for the Ramley. Cheers.
I don't think McVay's ever gone 0-3, so it would be horrible to start now.
Oh, that's true. I don't think he's ever gone.
3
He's ever
losses
lost
in a row. I don't think he's ever done it.
Coming off of a bye, too. That's all right. We'll see. Go Rams.